What is going on, everybody? It's Thursday, NHL Stokastic Strategy Show, sponsored by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Josh Harris. You guys probably know me by now. Joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy, looking a bit confused right now. How you doing, Cliffy?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what Vancouver's doing. Right before we came on the air, Andrei Kuzmenko extended for 2 years. $5.5 million a season, I think. The guy doesn't even have 50 NHL games, and he's shooting 25%. Like, I think he's a good player, but this team needs to rebuild. They don't need a second-line scoring winger in his late 20s. They probably should have traded him at the deadline, but that's neither here nor there. They got absolutely spanked last night. That was a pretty dispiriting performance from them. Shout out Dakota Joshua. You outscored both Bo Horvat and Brock Besser last night. So at least I got one thing right on yesterday's slate.
Edmonton was awful, though, too. So,
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, we talked in our Discord earlier today about playing or fading Edmonton yesterday. What was the right play? Like, I have no problem playing Edmonton yesterday. Such a short slate, such a good spot. The question was just who you're going to put in around them. But there was a lot of good, cheap value last night, right? Like, even in the loss, Igor Shesterkin was fine for 7,300. Ridley Grigg put up almost like 20 DK points last night for 2,500. Dakota Joshua went over 3x. Yanni Hakanpää was one block away from the block bonus for 2,600, and he had a shot on goal. Like, there's a lot of good, cheap value last night to slam around Edmonton, and I think, 90 times out of 100, I think I would probably just do the same thing and just jam in what I thought was good, cheap value that would come in pretty low owned. And Dakota Joshua was, 0.2% in the $12 playing on with Bo Horvat. There was some good cheap value to slam with Edmonton. Edmonton just, didn't do anything. I had a bad feeling when they announced Joonas Korpisalo because he's actually played well this year. I think that's something we should get into the slate at some point, but I just want to mention that about Columbus real quick, is that a lot of their problems this year, not great defensively, obviously, but goaltending has just been horrific. Korpisalo has been injured for a lot of it. It's been, Merzlikins or Tarasov or whatever. When Korpisalo's been in net, he's been good, and I think that's something to keep in mind for Blue Jacket slates moving forward.
Yeah. On top of that, like, that top line didn't look too good. I fit in the Rangers kids line with McDavid. Got 2 goals from Hedl. Was sitting pretty good. Nope. Edmonton. It happens, though. Like, that's why when we talk about top stacks, they had a 61% chance of being a top 2 stack. Doesn't mean they will be, and that was an example.
Yeah, that means 4 out of 10 games they're not going to be. So, that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, we have a 9-gamer tonight. I like this slate. The late hammers are a bit wonky, and that's always fun, but I don't know if fun's the right word, but if you're on the West Coast, it's more fun because it's not after midnight and you're like bleeding your eyes out, hoping that the Coyotes don't give up 38 goals. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But let's get into the slate. But before we do, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe so you keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our show goes live. Don't forget, all of these shows are available in podcast form, except for Live Before Locks. Shout out to Prize Picks. We'll have a nice deal for you a bit later in the show. Let's start it off here. The Detroit Red Wings with a 3.3 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.7 total. Ville Husso, Jake Allen is confirmed. That is kind of weird. When I was doing the run sheet a few hours ago, Jake Allen was not confirmed, and the Red Wings had a 3 total. Jake Allen gets confirmed, and the Detroit Red Wings total jumps by 10%. Now, I don't, whatever. Tyler Bertuzzi's a game-time decision. So if he's in, we don't know where he's going to slot in. I would imagine he takes over power play 1, but that, again, coaches are going to do weird things. As it stands, this is a pretty good power play matchup for the Wings, but their top power play unit is Larkin, Raymond, Bergen, Kopp, and Cedar at the moment. So I don't have a ton of interest in the Red Wings. If Bertuzzi's back and he slots in on that top line with Larkin and Raymond, and he does get top power play time, then we won't know about power play time. But if he does slot in on that top line, I'll have interest in the Wings more. I just don't want to play Andrew Kopp at 3,500 despite him being on the top power play. You know what I mean? So on the Montreal side, again, just not much there. I guess you can go to Doc Hoffman 2-man. It seemed to do pretty well the other night. They get top power play time. They're 7,400 for the two of them, but they're coming in way over-owned. The top ownership in this game is on Doc and Hoffman. So it's a 6 total, and there's a lot to like. I just don't know if there's enough to like in 1 to 3.
Yeah, it's a lot of this is just figuring out what Detroit's going to do, right? Because if Bertuzzi is back, he could go anywhere, right? We've seen him skate on the top line with Dylan Larkin. We've also seen him skate on the third line with Joe Veleno. We've seen him on the top power play unit. We've also seen him on the second power play unit. That's kind of what's tough here. I was looking at both Detroit's last game and then Bertuzzi's last game before that. So Detroit's last game, out of the final 9 even strength shifts that Larkin and Raymond skated together, they skated 6 of them with Jonathan Berggren. It could be Berggren up there. Why that's kind of important is Berggren's not having that bad of a season, at least by expected goals impacts. And he was on the top power play unit with that line. So they would be perfectly correlated at even strength if Berggren is up there at warm-up. The other part of that is obviously, maybe they just go to Andrew Kopp because they had used Andrew Kopp there in that last game. They didn't start with that combination either. They started with Michael Rasmussen on the top line, but he only lasted 3 or 4 shifts. It could be any of 4 different people on that top, including the last time Bertuzzi was in the lineup, Dominic Kubalik was on the top line. So there's no real telling what this is going to look like. I think it's going to be Bertuzzi back on the top line just because Raymond and Larkin have seen so much shifting in that, third wheel, that third line mate position. Like I said, they had 3 different guys play multiple shifts there in the last game alone. I think they'd like to see a little bit more stability. Maybe Bertuzzi can bring that. If Bertuzzi's on the top line, in his last game, it was Larkin and Raymond with Berggren and Bertuzzi on the top power play unit. So whether it's Berggren or whether it's Bertuzzi on the top line, I think one of them is I think they're both. There's a good chance both of them end up on the top power play unit, and that's like you said, that's really good news for this specific matchup. Just because Montreal's penalty kill is so bad, the Montreal PK over their last 20 games, I think 4th worst by shots against, worst by goals against. I think the second most time shorthanded or most times shorthanded of any team. So not only they're taking a lot more penalties, but they're getting worse at killing them. Like it's not really a good combination for the Habs. So I really do like that Detroit top line, whether it's Berggren there, whether it's Bertuzzi there. I don't think it really matters all that much for the outlook of that line. And they're basically interchangeable for me at this point. The problem is that Bertuzzi's listed as a center on DraftKings. And obviously Berggren's a winger. So if you have your lineup made and you have Berggren in there, and then all of a sudden Bertuzzi's on the top line, you might have to shift around your entire lineup to get that even strength line in. So just watch that. I imagine Bertuzzi's going to be pretty low owned, A, because he's a game time decision, and B, because it is a potential double center situation. I don't mind going in that direction. So, if Bertuzzi is on that top line, I really don't mind going double center plus Raymond. It's a really, really great matchup against the Habs are one of the worst defensive teams in the league anyway, and they're missing half their forwards. I know they put up a bit of a fight against Boston, but Boston still ended up putting up 4 goals despite looking not interested in that game whatsoever until about 10 minutes left. So I really do like Detroit one here. I'm not a big fan of dipping down further in the lineup. I think most of those guys will get secondary power play minutes. I don't think, Andrew Copp's line is not a line that I particularly target. So, I think like a one-off Robbie Fabry or a one-off David Perron or something like that is fine. But if I'm stacking, it's Detroit one. On the Montreal side, I just don't have interest. Like that Doc Hoffman alone ownership is just absolutely absurd. They'll probably play heavy minutes. So if you want a one-off Hoffman or one-off Josh Anderson played 19.5 minutes in their last game, that's where this team's at health-wise. So one-off Hoffman, one-off Anderson, something like that. But I don't think I'm stacking on Montreal.
Yeah, I agree. The ownership is just too high on that. And I mean, they are cheap, so I get it. But I think you can do better. Before we move on, we have a $19.99 super chat from Ed Abruzzi. How you doing, huh? Just wanted to say thanks for the great content. Had a solid performance on the FanDuel Super Goal on Thursday. Go Ducks. Today's Thursday, right? Are you talking about last Thursday?
Might be.
Tuesday? Or are you projecting? Like you already know you did well tonight.
I mean, every day is pretty much the same once the NHL season starts. So
I get anyway, congratulations to you. That is a very Italian last name. We love to see it. Okay. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Ed. We really do appreciate it.
No, we do.
Congrats on the hit.
No, yeah. And if you're talking about tonight, weird flex, but okay. Also, Ducks are one of the teams that I want to see Connor Bedard go to. The Ducks or the Canadiens, your boys.
I love you, Josh. Thank you for being so kind and being so smart and wise in your decision making.
Yeah, but as we know, Hedl is better than Nick Suzuki. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Boston Bruins with a 3 total heading into Tampa Bay. The Lightning also have a 3 total. Linus Ullmark and Andrei Vasilevsky are confirmed. Taylor Hall up on the top line with Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand. I haven't even talked to Jake about this, but I know he's going to have at least 126% Boston one tonight. Hall also on the top power play unit, so that does fully correlate the line. And Taylor Hall is 5,100. This is one of the road games where Boston will get up and actually try to play, I would imagine. This is one of the teams that will be competing for a Stanley Cup spot with in the playoffs. One of these teams will be eliminating the Leafs. So yeah, like this is a tough matchup. I don't know if I'd get to, full stacking on either side and 1 to 3. Don't mind a Hall one-off. But like in MME, you'd be remiss not to have the top lines on each side in MME, more so to the Boston side, just because don't like going into the Bergeron line.
Yeah, I wasn't really super high on Boston when the day started. And then once we got the news that Taylor Hall was going on the top line, I got a little bit more interested. Like you said, it would be perfect correlation, which is, that's something you always look for when you're stacking a line in DFS. Problem is there's no real sample here because whenever Taylor Hall has played on the top line, it's been when Marchand's been injured or something like that. So There's not a lot of Taylor Hall playing right wing samples. I think he played right wing in New Jersey the year he won the MVP.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
He played
so
a little bit in Edmonton, but he was mostly left wing there.
yeah, so obviously he can play the position. He's getting two premier players at their positions to play alongside with, and they're not coming in with much ownership. I've noticed in the top stacks run from about an hour ago with Hall there, they're now one of the 5 best leverage lines on FanDuel tonight. They're number 5 on DraftKings, number 4 on FanDuel. Their combined price too is relatively cheap, under 19K on DraftKings. Like typically, even with Taylor Hall there, this would be a line you'd expect to see at 20K plus. So it's a relatively decent savings. And like Tampa Bay hasn't been elite or anything defensively for a little while now. I was looking over the last 6 weeks, they're basically the middle of the pack by expected goals against at 5-on-5. Like they're neck and neck with teams like Seattle and Detroit. Like they're not bad by any stretch, but like this isn't as if you were going into Carolina or, going into Boston or something like that. Like this isn't a brutal matchup. We've talked how they've used that Cirelli Stamkos line as a shutdown line. That line really hasn't been that great. 90 minutes since Christmas, 3.7 expected goals against, 2.8 actual goals against. Now they're generating a lot of offense, so they're trading chances at both ends. But that seems to line up kind of well for that Boston top line that is so good defensively, is now perfectly correlated, has pretty good leverage, and is not that expensive. I'm kind of digging Boston 1 here. I think they're even fine regardless of the tournament that you're playing. It's still an elite line. Problem is making a Boston stack but leaving off David Pastrnak is something that I'm not a huge fan of. So, maybe you can leave off Hall, put on Pastrnak, leave off Marchand, put on Pastrnak, pay a couple more thousand or something like that. I kind of like the Boston top line here when looking at their projection and when looking at their leverage. And, Tampa's playing very well offensively, but they're also giving it up in their own end. So I don't mind this matchup at all. On the Tampa side, it would be the Tampa top line, going back to Hagel, Point, and Kucherov. They'll get that Pastrnak Krejci matchup. It's not like an awesome matchup to go into, but they themselves have been sliding defensively. 3 expected goals against in their minutes since Christmas. The Tampa top line has been exceptional since Christmas. 4 expected goals for, 4.7 actual goals for. Decent matchup for the Tampa top line. I think it's both top lines I like in this game. I think they're both playable regardless of format. The Tampa top line is more expensive and only coming in with a little less ownership, so I'd probably go Boston 1 if forced to choose between the two. But I kind of like both top lines here. I think the way that Tampa does their line matching, it leads to both top lines being in reasonable matchups here tonight.
Yeah. We'll have to see if Stamkos is up on that top line again. They practiced with Hagel, then they ran Stamkos last game. So it's a 7:00 lock. So just be aware of that. But yeah, definitely both lines. I know Jake, very excited about Taylor Hall getting an opportunity here. Let's move on to the next one. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 3.1 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3.3 total. Casey DeSmith, Darcy Kemper confirmed. Casey DeSmith is terrible. Tom Wilson is out. Kuznetsov is still on the 4th line or something like he's on the 2nd power play unit. Marcus Johansson's up on the top power play unit. Like, I want to play the Capitals tonight. It's just like Peter Laviolette is becoming one of my least favorite coaches in the NHL for DFS purposes. He's just been mixing and matching and mixing and matching and matching and mixing. Just leave some lines together and get a sample on them so we can get something going here. I don't want to play Nicholas Aube-Kubel. Nothing against him. I just don't want to play him on the top line. Like Kuznetsov is playing with Haas and a beer salesman. Like, I don't want to play them. You know what I mean? So, like, maybe with Wilson out, it makes the lines a little bit better. But, like, I guess Ovechkin Ovechkin, Backstrom, 2-man is fine. Like Ovechkin, Oshie, Backstrom, something like that, like is probably what I do on the Capital side. On the Pittsburgh side, like that second line has just been, I don't know if it's shooting percentage driven or what is going on with them, but they've been eating their Wheaties, and it is very good, and they're coming in with almost no ownership tonight.
Yeah, I will mention that Washington did run practice or had morning skate. Tom Wilson wasn't there. They called him officially a game time decision. At morning skate, they moved Connor Sheary into his spot beside Kuznetsov and Mantha. That they moved Sheary there and just didn't have some guy kind of fill in kind of tells me that I don't think Wilson is going to be playing, but obviously we'll see when warmups hit. They had moved Oshie to the top line with Ovechkin and Strome, which is kind of interesting because Oshie is also on the top power play unit with Ovechkin. Now, I mean, Ovechkin plays both power play units, but he is on the top unit with Ovechkin. He would be there with Nicholas Backstrom, as you mentioned. The thing is like Oshie's really not playing that well this year. His expected goals impacts are absolutely terrible. Like they're the second worst of any Washington forward so far this season. And we're at a point where Oshie, I think, is up to nearly 500 minutes played. Like he does have 32 games under his belt. He's only on pace for like 36 points or something, 40 points in a full season. I think I had it written down. Like it's really not a lot. Like he's not having a great year. So how good is that line actually going to be? Because, as we've mentioned a few times on the show, Ovechkin's had some trouble scoring with Dylan Strome as his center. Like that was kind of the problem with Strome and Sheary together with Ovechkin, was that they just couldn't finish. And Ovi and Oshie kind of had that problem too. Like going back to last year, they have 105 minutes together, 2.9 expected goals for, but only 2.3 actual goals. Like Ovechkin's had problems finishing with Oshie beside him. He's had problems finishing with Strome as the center. I shouldn't say it's just him. Obviously, it's the entire line, but really not scoring a lot. So it's kind of tough for me to get to that Washington line. They're 17K, which is, pretty reasonable. Coming at 8.5% ownership, like the Winnipeg Pierre-Luc Dubois line is only a little bit more expensive, obviously with more ownership. The St. Louis top line is coming in with less ownership. The Boston top line that we just talked about is only 1,800 more expensive and coming in at a quarter of the ownership. So my problem with Washington isn't only who Ovechkin's playing with, but it's the other options that are available across the slate. Now, obviously if I'm playing, dozens of lineups, I'm going to have some Washington. If I'm only playing 1, 3, or 5 or something, I don't know if I would get to any full Washington stacks. As always, if you want to save money and go with a one-off Oshie, I think you can definitely do that. Obviously, a one-off Ovechkin is always in play for us. So just keep an eye on warmups for Tom Wilson returning. That might shuffle things around, but I don't have any stacking interest in Washington. I agree with you. I think it's the Pittsburgh side that I have more interest in here. There aren't really any full line combinations that I'm worried about from a defensive standpoint, especially with Nick Dowd injured and Lars Eller not really playing that well. Like there are no shutdown matchups I'm really concerned about on the Washington side. Washington doesn't take a ton of penalties. They're one of the least penalized teams in the league. They are giving up, a reasonable amount of shots against on ball on the penalty kill, but not a lot, and the goaltending's been good. So it's not really a good power play spot for Pittsburgh. So I would focus on the 5-on-5 lines. The top line, not much ownership, 1.8%. Second line, not much ownership, under 1% on DraftKings. The second line has been playing, has been generating more offensively since Christmas, 3.4 expected goals. Malkin has 34 shots in his last 10 games. I kind of like that Malkin, Raquel, Zucker line here. They're going to avoid any sort of defensive matchup that Washington can muster. And once you get into that middle of that Washington lineup with their injuries, guys returning from injuries, you're playing against like Kuznetsov or an injured, not injured, but Ailing, Backstrom, let's say, something like that. I think it could make for some good matchups. So I do like Pittsburgh too here in this matchup. Though I'm going to be honest, I'm not super high on stacking either side.
Yeah, I don't like stacking this game, but if I had to stack a line, it would be Pittsburgh second line. Get 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. Who wouldn't want that? And your first bet is covered up to $1,000 in first bet insurance when you sign up, make a deposit, and make your first paid wager at BetMGM. If you don't have a BetMGM account, this deal is ridiculous. There's no strings attached. If your first bet loses, you'll get paid back in site credit equal to the amount of that first wager up to $1,000. Make sure to click that link in the description below. You need to sign up with Stokastic, which is free if you don't have a membership there. Sign up with BetMGM, follow the steps. You need to deposit a minimum of $10, maximum of $1,000, and then go put the bet on Evan Rodriguez power play point. It's mispriced because there's a chance he could be power play 1 tonight, and they're playing the Ducks. So yeah, go bet that. Go sign up. Go get your 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. What are you waiting for? And just remember, the legal age for gambling in most states is 21 plus. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's move on to the next game here. We have the New Jersey Devils with a 3.1 total heading into Nashville. The Predators have a 2.9 total. Mackenzie Blackwood and UC Saros are probable. You were petitioning to get Holla off the Hughes line. You succeeded, but you failed to mention who you wanted there, because now you got a nice cast of characters there. That is not Bratt. That is not Heischer. That is not Palat. I think it's with Fabian Zetterlund and Yegor Sharangovich. Does that do anything for you?
I mean, kind of, because actually Hughes and Sharangovich do have a reasonable sample of success together going back quite a while. Just this year, in about 100 minutes together, Hughes and Sharangovich playing without Jesper Bratt, so anybody but their top playmaking winger. 2.8 expected goals for, 4.2 actual goals for. Now that's shooting over 15%, but they had success going back to last year as well. So I don't really hate the Sharangovich Zetterlund additions. We just don't have we don't have a sample of that line. We don't have a sample of Hughes playing much with Zetterlund, because when Zetterlund was in the top 6, he played a lot with Hischier. And I'm not sure how long those line combinations actually stay together. Would it surprise anybody if the second period rolls around and all of a sudden Thomas Tatar is playing with Hughes and Zetterlund or something like that, right? So I'm a little bit worried about that line getting shaken up. Jack Hughes is always in play as a one-off. He just shoots so much and scores so much that he's always viable as a one-off. I'm just not sure I'd stack the entire line. It's the Hischier line that I mentioned in the Power Plays article. Free to read up on Stokastic.com. Just head on over to the NHL section. You should see it right at the top of the homepage. Palat, Hischier, and Bratt, 125 minutes together at 5-on-5 this year, 3.3 expected goals, 3.4 actual goals per 60 minutes. Those are very good. Not elite, but very good. Nashville's last 20 games, they're allowing the 4th most shot attempts, 3rd most shots, and 3rd most expected goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 of any team in the league. Obviously, UC Saros is the complicating factor here. He's put up some absolutely monster games for Nashville basically over the last 2 months. He's keeping them single-handedly in the playoff race. That is the issue when you're facing UC Saros. The issue isn't the Nashville forwards or their defensemen or the defensive system or lack of penalties or a great penalty kill. It's none of that. Nashville has none of that. The problem is UC Saros. If he's on his game, there's no line that's going to go off against him. The thing is he's not always on his game, right? What I pointed out in that article is that he still has I think over his last 5 games, he has a .913 save percentage, which is still well above league average. League average is 904, 905. And he has 2 games in there where he's allowed at least 5 goals. It's because Nashville allows so many shots that when he, even if he has a bad game, he can still post a reasonable shooting or save percentage, because, allowing 3 goals on 39 shots or something like that actually isn't that bad. But New Jersey shouldn't have any problem generating offense in this matchup. It's just a matter of beating UC Saros or not. I like to pick on teams that are heavily reliant on goaltending. Nashville's certainly one of them. So I do like the Hischier, Bratt, Palat line. They're under 16K on DraftKings, so they're not expensive whatsoever. At least two of them are going to be on the top power play unit, if not all three. They've been switching Palat and Tatar on and off. They have positive leverage. I'm not really worried about the matchup. They're probably going to face off against the Ryan Johansson line. That line's up over 70 minutes, playing real well offensively, but 3.1 expected goals against, 4.2 actual goals against. They're not playing well defensively at all. I think it's a pretty good matchup for the New Jersey top line at 5-on-5 today. They're the line that I want to play in this game. I think the Forsberg Duchesne Glass line is also in play, but they're what, $900 cheaper than the New Jersey top line, coming in with more than double the ownership at roughly the same top two probability. So I'd rather just play the New Jersey top line, the Hischier line specifically.
Yeah. I think Forsberg Duchesne 2-man is fine, especially if Blackwood's in net. Like, he just hasn't had a good season. But yeah, I agree. Push comes to shove, I'm playing the Devils here. Let's move on to the next one here. Buffalo Sabres with a 2.8 total heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3.6 total. Eric Comrie and Connor Hellebuck are confirmed. Eric Comrie, min price on DraftKings here. I mean, there's a couple things at play here. Eric Comrie, min price, always grabs your attention. Flowchart season. Is this a tough matchup? Is this an easy matchup? The flowchart doesn't know. Buffalo is a very good offensive team, and they're competing for a playoff spot. They're just bad defensively, though. They don't have a very good PK. Winnipeg's power play has been very good since Ehlers has come back. I think I'm going right back to the Ehlers, Scheifele, Wheeler line. They're getting, I don't want to say substantially lower ownership than the Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor line, but it is less. It's not in double digits. If you want a power play stack here, I think that's also fine. And then on the flip side, like, this is one of the toughest matchups, I guess, that you can have, like, power play wise for the Sabres. Like, the Jets penalty kill is very good. They don't take many penalties. The 5-on-5 matchup isn't anything to sneeze at. Like, it's not extremely tough. It's not extremely easy, though. Buffalo not getting any ownership at all. Their projection isn't even that great, and that's what's worrisome. Like, both the Winnipeg lines, like the Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor line, has a higher projection than Buffalo 1. The Ehlers Scheifele line has a projection just below the Buffalo 1 line. So, like, you can get to Buffalo 1 here in MME. It's just like, I'd rather just go for a cheaper Winnipeg line in a much bigger total, in a better matchup.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of just went through this with the Sabres, right? They went into St. Louis the other night. We really weren't on them that much, and they had a pretty good game. Now, Winnipeg is a much, much tougher spot than going into St. Louis for all, the reasons you mentioned. They don't take a lot of penalties. They have a great penalty kill, and they have Connor Hellebuck in net, who's just as good as Saros that we just mentioned. He gets the added benefit of not having to play behind Nashville. And, one thing I'll dispute is the even strength matchup, because Winnipeg does often use that third line as a shutdown line, the Lowry, Kuhlman, Barron line. They've been a little bit below average defensively this year. Like, it's not like you're going in to face like Joel Eriksson Ek or Jordan Staal or anything like that, right? Like, I don't think it's that bad, but I don't think they have that much upside on the power play in this game. And without that power play upside, you're relying on them basically scoring 3, if not 4 goals at even strength against Connor Hellebuck. Like, I think there's a pretty good reason why they're not coming in with any ownership. Like you said, if you're playing a ton of lineups, even if I was playing 20 lineups, I'd probably have 1 with Buffalo, at least 1, maybe 2. If you have 50, you should probably have a couple. But I just don't know if I'm going to get there in my 1 to 3s. Like, I think they make a nice pivot from what's going to be super chalky Colorado, obviously. But on it, I'll just to be truthful here, I would probably rather just go play Tampa 1. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Tampa 1's going to probably come in at 1 to 2%. a little bit higher owned than Buffalo, but if they're 1% to 2%, I really don't care. The difference between 1.2% and 0.6%, it really doesn't matter to me in a contest with 500 people. So I'd probably rather just play Tampa 1 for a cheaper price. That's just kind of where I'm at with Buffalo. On the Winnipeg side, trying to figure out which line you want to use is a bit tougher here. Like I said, they have been using that Winnipeg third line as a shutdown line, so that should leave the Winnipeg the top Winnipeg lines going up against the middle six from Buffalo. That middle stat line has been playing well defensively. That's something that we should say. Maybe that's a matchup to avoid, but I'm worried that it's just small sample noise. Like, I can't imagine a Casey Middlestat, Tyson Jost, Victor Olofsson line is actually really considerably better than average defensively. You know what I mean? Weird things happen. It just really doesn't pass, the sniff test for me, let's say. So I think Dubois and Connor are probably going to get that matchup, which then leaves Scheifele and Ehlers going up against either the fourth line or the Cousins Quinn Peterka line. I think Scheifele and Ehlers carry the matchup in that matchup. They've been generating a lot. They're scoring 3.5 goals per 60 minutes with Scheifele and Ehlers on the ice, and they're shooting under 9% while they're doing it. This is a line that I think could shoot 11%, and I really wouldn't bat an eye. So I think there's even more to give here. You can leave Blake Wheeler off if you want. He has 11 shots in his last 10 games. He's basically just a pass bot at this point. But it's Scheifele and Ehlers that I like the best. They're coming in with less ownership. I think I wouldn't even be opposed to just doing Scheifele Ehlers and then adding Kyle Connor, or Scheifele Ehlers and adding Pierre-Luc Dubois. It's a great power play spot. I shouldn't say great power play spot. Buffalo has the second lowest penalty kill time on ice over the last 6 weeks. So they're not taking very many penalties. They're just allowing a lot of shots when they do. So I think there is merit to a power play stack, but I think there's also merit to just focusing at 5-on-5. I think the way Kyle Connor's shooting the puck and all the ice time he gets, I think I would lean to putting Connor instead of Wheeler, but I think just leaving Wheeler there and, hoping he hits it 3 assists or something like that is just fine. But it's Scheifele and Ehlers I like the best in this game.
Yeah. I do too. I don't know. Pierre-Luc Dubois has been shooting the puck a ton, though. It's just I'd rather just play the lower owned line with more power play spots there, or same power play spots, but lower ownership, a little bit cheaper. Let's move on to the next one. Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.5 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.5 total. Carter Hart, Marc-Andre Fleury confirmed. Would imagine the Joel Eriksson Ek line is going to see the Cates Konechny Farabee line. If I was the coach, that's who I'd send out. Again, I would say the Konechny line's top comp. So that puts the Zuccarello Steele Kaprizov line in a very good 5-on-5 matchup. I am interested in that line. Kirill Kaprizov is getting a ton of ownership. If you want to leave off Steele and add in Joel Eriksson Ek, that's fine. But the Flyers penalty kill has been pretty good. They gave up a goal the other night. I just, 11% Steele isn't doing it for me, but maybe 13% Joel Eriksson Ek isn't doing it for me either. I'd rather get the 5-on-5 matchup and save the money than spend up for a power play matchup that's not great. So Minnesota won for me. On the Flyer side, with Joel Eriksson Ek taking the connecting line, that's going to be a big no. That means, if the Tippett Frost Van Riemsdyk line goes into that Steele line, maybe I'll have a little bit of interest in MME, but probably not too much.
Yeah, line matching here really matters because, like you said, going up against Eriksson Ek is a death sentence for offense. And I was looking at Philly's recent road games. They had one in Boston, and Boston sent out the Bergeron line against Konechny. They had one in Buffalo. They sent out the Thompson line against Konechny. So I think you're right. Eriksson Ek's going to see the Konechny line. So that Konechny line's out of play for me. And then Boldy and Gaudreau, Brian Hartman's getting healthy scratch because he took a stupid penalty at the end of the last game. So they're going to put Brandon Duhaime with Boldy and Gaudreau. But Boldy and Gaudreau have been excellent defensively this year. So really that's another – yeah, but I think it's still another tough matchup to go through. I just don't know how deep how worried they are with the matching, the second and third lines. But what I will say is that Hayes, Lawton, Allison line has been really, really good. They've played 110 minutes so far this month, 3.6 expected goals for, 4.4 actual goals for. Scott Lawton has 22 shots in his last 10 games. Like, any meaningful stretch where he's over 2 shots per game feels almost otherworldly from him. Kevin Hayes gets top power play time, though the Flyers have been shuffling around their power play so much. It's starting to get a bit frustrating, but that's one thing to mention here is I mentioned it on the last show, but Minnesota is the most penalized team, or I should say they spent the most time shorthanded of any team in the league over the last 6 weeks. The actual penalty kill itself, not that great, like goals against 19th in the league. So it's not that bad of a power play spot for Philly. Just don't really know who's on the power play. Like, Kevin Hayes is pretty much mainstay of the top power play, but last game they moved Cam York in place of Tony DeAngelo. Sometimes Frost is up there, sometimes he's not. Sometimes Tippett's up there, sometimes he's not. Like, it's getting frustrating to try to focus on who the Flyers power play guys are going to be. But Lawton, Allison, and Hayes have been playing, like I said, playing extremely well offensively. You're going to get at least Hayes on the top power play. If not Hayes and Lawton, there's almost no ownership here. I don't know if you have to full 3-man stack them, but a 2-man of like Hayes and Lawton, Hayes and Allison or something like that. I think that's where I go on the Flyers side. With Minnesota, it's tough, man, because this is a bad power play spot for the Wild, right? Like, Philly, they've moved to the second fewest shots against over their last 20 games. Winnipeg Jets, the team we just talked about, the great penalty kill, the only team allowing less, not allowing a lot of goals. Their time shorthanded per game is bottom 10 or 10th least in the NHL over the last 20 games. Like, it's a pretty bad power play spot for Minnesota, and the top line has really been struggling. Like, 2.6 expected goals for, 3.1 against since Christmas. Christmas was a month ago. Like, this isn't just like a small 10-day sample or something. I don't think I'm in on Minnesota. Like, they're coming in with a ton of ownership. I think I'd rather just play one-offs. Like, I think Matt Boldy makes a ton of sense as a one-off in this game. If you want to just one-off Kaprizov and leave his line mates to the side, I think you can do that. So I don't think I'm full 3-man stacking anything out of this game, but I do like some one-offs from Minnesota. I do like that Hayes line on the Flyers side.
Yeah, top line is interesting because I just don't like Sam Steele, and I'm not sure I want to pay $7K for Matt Zuccarello.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I noticed some of his scoring chance data isn't that good this year. It's actually down from last year. And like, Zuccarello started off super hot, but it hasn't really been that great a stretch from him lately. 6 points in his last 10 games, only 24 shots on goal in those 10 games. Like, that's not that great. Like I said, this line has been struggling for like a month now.
Yeah. 7K just not it for me. So yeah, I guess like Kaprizov one-off is fine, but he's super chalky. You don't really want to like one-off a super chalky player, although he does have very high upside. So like Kaprizov might be one of the guys like Ovechkin who can get there without his line mates getting there. So yeah, I guess that does make some sense. So yeah, I am in on Boldy though. That is a very good spot. As we mentioned off the top of the show, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. And if you click the link in the description below, you can get 1 free month Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to $100 deposit match bonus when you sign up and make a deposit with Prize Picks. It's a prop-based contest. So if you're in a state like Florida or California, or I don't know what the other, like those are the 2 main states that I know that don't have legal sports betting, you should be on Prize Picks. Oh yeah, Jake's great state of Minnesota also doesn't have legal sports betting. So in those states, you should be on Prize Picks. Daily prop-based contest is basically like betting parlays. You can go multi-sport. 5-player lineup can net you up to 10x your entry fee. I have a prize pick for you tonight. I was looking through the NHL board. One of my favorites is Evgeny Malkin, over 2.5 shots on goal. He has been just a shooting machine as of late. So go hit that, get your free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, which is great. That is a very large value there. And you can get a $100 deposit match bonus as well. So click that link in the description. What the heck are you waiting for? Let's get to some of these late hammers. This is just silly seasons. Let's talk about it, though. Anaheim Ducks with a 2.2 total heading into Colorado. The Avs have a 3.9 total. Juanito Gibson and Pavel Frenchie Francouz confirmed. McKinnon is probably going to play tonight. He took morning skate off for maintenance. Valeri Nichushkin is out. What was that?
No, McKinnon's in. Dennis Mulligan's back too, but I think he was on the third line before he got hurt, so I'm not sure he's of much consequence on this slate. I mean, maybe he slides into Nichushkin's spot.
Yeah, and the Avs made a trade yesterday. Martin Kaut and Jacob McDonald to the Sharks for Matt Nieto and someone else. I don't think Nieto is going to be in the lineup either.
Yeah, they said the guys coming in aren't going to be playing.
Yeah. Which is actually a pretty good trade for the Avs, if we're being honest. I think Matt Nieto is a nice bottom six player. He'll fit in there nicely. Anyway, Nichushkin out tonight. I don't know who's going to slide in on that second line. Probably new hooker Logan O'Connor. It's just a question of now of whether it's going to be Evan Rodriguez or JT Compher on the top power play. The last few games where Valeri Nichushkin was out, it was Evan Rodriguez. That would fully correlate this top line. It's going up against one of the worst power or penalty kills in the league. The Ducks are, like, I guess offensive is a good word. Defensively, like, they're just brutal. Colorado 1's going to be probably the chalkiest spot of the night. I think you can power play stack. On the flip side, I do have a little bit of interest in, I'm not going to full stack by any means, but like a Zegras one off. He's been shooting the puck. A Troy Terry one off. A Mason McTavish one off. But like, I don't think I'm going to get to any Ducks on a 2.2 on the road. Especially like McKinnon. If you go look at McKinnon, Lehkonen, and Evan Rodriguez's numbers on both ends of the ice, they're absolutely ridiculous. So this is obviously a Colorado game.
Yeah, I'll just start with that ridiculous line that you just mentioned. Rodriguez, McKinnon, Lehkonen, they're up over 90 minutes together. So, it's not a massive sample, but that's like probably like 8 games worth of ice time or something now. 4 expected goals for, 1.9 expected goals against per 60 minutes, 3.9 actual goals for, 0 goals against. They're scoring 3.9 goals per 60 minutes, which I think is about 33% higher than the league average, and they're shooting league average at like conversion rate 5-on-5. It's because they're just generating so many shots. Like they are, and it's not like this isn't like, Calgary at the beginning of the season where they're just flinging shots from everywhere. They're generating quality. That's how you get the 4 expected goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Yeah, Nichushkin being out really changed my outlook for this game because I was kind of leaning to stacking that Colorado second line. Like I was really worried about all the ownership on the top line. It didn't seem people wanted to play Mikko Rantanen. Now that top line, I think it's going to be perfectly correlated. Like I do think Evan Rodriguez is going to be back on the top power play unit. So they're going to be perfectly correlated. And I wonder if this just doesn't push Rodriguez's ownership a little bit higher. Like he's hovering around 19% right now, as is Lehkonen. I think this might push them even higher now that they're perfectly correlated. I could see this being a 20% owned line in some contests.
I think higher.
Yeah, maybe higher. But it's still a tremendous spot. Like Anaheim's at the bottom of the league or near the bottom of the league, and basically every defensive metric at every possible strength, penalty kill, 5-on-5, what have you. So it is a great matchup for the Colorado top line. They're going to get that Anaheim top line, McTavish, Henry, Terry. They haven't been, they've been generating a lot offensively, which is why I'm going to get to them in a second. I kind of agree with you. I think they're playable, but 3.6 expected goals against the 5-on-5. Like Colorado 1 should have no problem generating offense here. Cale Makar is back in the lineup, so I think that's a boost to the power play as well as 5-on-5, obviously. So I do like that Colorado top line. Only 9 games, so I'm wondering, like, if some sort of power play stack isn't possible here, like you can probably, I think you'd have to leave off Makar, but McKinnon, Lehkonen, Rodriguez, Rantanen, just stuff all four in your lineup and away you go. I think that's certainly one way you can go here. I think you can, leave off Lehkonen and put in Rantanen. Lehkonen, he's been putting up some points, but 26 shots in his last 10 games. He's not the big scoring threat. I think Rantanen will have to pick up some slack with Nichushkin out. So I do like the idea of just power play stacking Colorado, or just finding a way to get Rantanen into my power play stack. I think he's probably going to be key to the slate, whether he produces or not. So I do like power play stacking Colorado. On the other side, both Anaheim lines have been reasonably good at generating. Both Colorado top lines have been a lot better defensively of late. I would lean the top line for Anaheim because you're probably going to get all the guys on the top power play unit. Colorado's penalty kill really hasn't been that great. Anaheim's power play has been at least passable. So I don't mind some of that Anaheim top line here. I agree with you. With reasonable prices, I think you just one off Zegras and one off Terry, but I don't mind that Henrique line, but it is a Colorado power play stack I prefer. Clearly.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that warm-ups hit and the coach doesn't like galaxy brain himself into moving to like Rodriguez to the second line center, moving like Confer up with McKinnon. You know what I mean? Like hopefully he just doesn't do anything silly.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's move on to another fun one. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.2 total heading into Calgary. The Flames have a 3.8 total. Jackson with an X. Stauber and Jacob Markstrom confirmed.
Yeah.
This is like a serious because the Flames power play has gotten a bit better. This is also a very, very good power play spot. The problem is their even strength time on ice is all very concentrated between like 14 and 18 minutes. You're not going to get like the 23 minutes you'll get out of Nathan McKinnon tonight. You know what I mean? At best, you'll get like 18 minutes out of Elias Lindholm, 19 minutes out of Kadri. Then you're looking at like 16 minutes from Huberdeau and Toffoli, this and that. It's kind of baked into the ownership here a little bit. It's obviously lower than Colorado, and I think this is a very, very good power play spot, and I think it's perfectly fine, and their prices are cheaper. It's just knowing that you're going to get 16, 17 minutes instead of 22, 23, 24. And also, like, Calgary's best line doesn't even have a guy on the top power play and back on Coleman Mangiapane, and they're getting close to double-digit ownership. So, like, I think the Flames are much more difficult to navigate DFS-wise than the Avs tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I wrote up Michael Backlund in that picks article just because of his shot volume. The guy's had 16 DraftKings shot bonuses, 48 games, and he doesn't get power play time. Like, that's pretty incredible, consistent production from him. That Calgary line has been excellent. Backlund, Mangiapane, and Coleman. 4.1 expected goals for in the month of January, 4.5 actual goals for, only shooting 9.5%. Like, everything's pretty reasonable. They're just running over the opponent. The problem is ownership, right? Coming in 9 to 10% owned against 3% top two stack probability. I think this is a small enough slate where you can kind of onslaught Josh Stack, go 6-man Calgary. Here's the thing is, like, Chicago's penalty kill, it's been better, like not like good, but yeah, but like better, right? Because but the thing is, we pick on Chicago because it was an atrocious penalty kill, right? Like Anaheim, Arizona levels of atrocious. Over the last 6 weeks, like 21st by shots against, that's, like I said, not good, but that's certainly not what they were doing earlier in the season. It's better than teams like Nashville, Florida, Colorado that we just talked about. If you look at the actual goals against, not that bad either. 22nd, better than like that Buffalo team we just talked about, better than Colorado that we just talked about. Like, bad, but not awful. And they're not taking a ton of penalties either. In that stretch, seventh least time shorthanded of any team in the league. Like, I don't know that this is specifically a great power play spot at this moment for the Flames. But all three lines are definitely in play. I'm going to lean to the line that's I think is just the best 5-on-5 line, and that's Mangiapane, Backlund, and Coleman. They are coming in with over leveraged, but there are a lot of expensive lines that are coming in with good leverage that you can pair them with, right? Like you can pair them with Tampa Bay, you can pair them with Boston, you can pair them with Pittsburgh or Winnipeg or what have you, right? Like there are a lot of low-owned spots that you can mix in with them. I think all the Calgary lines are fine. I'm not going to begrudge any of the top three Calgary lines in this matchup. I just think that third line, the Mangiapane, Backlund, Coleman line is playing the best, has been their best line, and I'm not as concerned with the power play matchup here as I would have been even like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago or something. Nothing on the Chicago side, obviously.
Yeah, and we'll have a NHL free trial deal for you in just a second, but just to hit on something that we always use on the show in the lineup builder, if you look at the line projections for these three lines, right, you have the Toffoli, Lindholm, and Dubé line at the highest at 30.5 DK points, right? Then you have the Backlund, Coleman, Mangiapane line with no power play time coming in at 28.3 points, which is higher than the Kadri, Huberdeau, Lucic line at 28.0. Now, if any replacement NHLer was there instead of Lucic, they probably would have the highest, but Lucic is there. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. Backlund, Coleman, Mangiapane is their best line. So yeah, I do like them. I do like going to the Toffoli, Lindholm, Dubé line as well. That would be my preferred line if you're going the power play style. And as I mentioned, if you're interested in all the tools that we use on this site, you can get a 5-day NHL free trial. Click the link in the description below. If you do it today, you'll get today's big slate. Tomorrow's an 8-gamer. Saturday's a big slate. And you also get Sunday and Monday. I would imagine there's a decent slate on Monday. Sunday's always iffy with NFL. But yeah, it's a risk-free trial. You get full access to everything we have to offer, the projections, the ownership, the top stacks, the rankings, and something invaluable is the Discord. You get all late-breaking news. You get a bunch of minds in there. You can always ask questions. Everyone's friendly. There's always outliers in all statistics, but most everyone is friendly. And if someone's being mean to you, there's always someone who can handle it. So come in, sign up, come say hello. I'll give you a wave. I'll send a dog picture. Say you're coming from YouTube and this and that. Let's get to the last game of the night. It's also nice that the latest game tonight is 9 p.m. Eastern. No 10 or 10:30 starts, which is 4 a.m. for Cliffy. He lives in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, which still boggles my mind, the Atlantic time zone, but that neither here nor there. St. Louis Blues with a 3.5 total heading into Arizona. The Coyotes have a 3 total. Tomas Griesfire, Thomas Greiss, and Karel Vejmelka are confirmed. We just talked about, the power play spot for the Flames and the Avalanche, and you mentioned that the Arizona Coyotes have been way worse than the Blackhawks, and here we are. This is a very good power play spot for the Blues, and they're getting no ownership. Oh boy, you know what I mean? Tarasenko and Shen, 2%, Kyrou, Thomas under 1%. That has to come up in the next run, even if it comes up to 4, 5, 6%. This is a power play spot that I'm interested in. And on the flip side, the Blues don't take many penalties. Their penalty kill is still pretty bad. Rice, I guess he's a downgrade from Bennington. Bennington's just a weird enigma, I guess I would call him. So I do have interest in the Arizona top line here. A 3 total for the Coyotes with pretty top heavy scoring here. I know Lawson Krause is back tonight, but Shane Gostisbehere is out. So you might see, I don't know who you see on the top power play in a spot. Maybe Nick Ritchie, maybe Lawson Krause, maybe JJ Moser. I'm not sure, but I am interested in Arizona top line as well.
Yeah, that Arizona top line's all been getting heavy minutes as well. I think it's important to note all 20 to 23 minutes over their last 5 games. 2.4 expected goals for, 3.6 actual goals for. Not a lot generated, but a lot converted. This is a talented line. The thing is they're going to be going up against the St. Louis top line, Sad and Kyrou, and they actually haven't been that bad defensively. 2.4 expected goals against in their minutes together. That's fine defensive numbers. I think they'll get worse because some of those minutes have Ryan O'Reilly, not Robert Thomas, but that's kind of where we're at. Not a great power play spot, whether it was Gostisbehere in the lineup or not. St. Louis doesn't take many penalties. Their penalty kill has been getting a lot better basically since the end of November. It's been a couple months now of improvement. So I'm going to be honest. I don't think I'm going to stack the Arizona side in this game. Coming in over-owned in a bad power play spot. I don't think I'm going to stack the top line. I did write up Dylan Guenther in the picks article. 3,300, 26 shots in his last 10 games, which feels unbelievable for anybody on this Arizona Coyotes team, not named Clayton Keller or Jacob Chikrin, but he has been doing well since he returned from the World Juniors. Getting some reasonable ice time. I think he's a candidate for power play one time. I do think it's going to be Nick Ritchie, which whatever. But at least Guenther is a candidate, I think, for some power play one time. He's going to go up against that Tank Barbashev line. That line is terrible defensively. 3.6 expected goals against with Tarasenko and Barbashev on the ice. 3.3 actual goals against. It's tough to say to play the Arizona second line because I think it could end up Guenther, Bukestad, and Krause. But I don't think they're going to carry that much ownership, and I at least have some interest in one-off Guenther. On the Seattle side, it's the top line, or St. Louis side, sorry, it's the top line. Kyrou, Thomas, and Saad, very little ownership, reasonable price, tremendous power play matchup. Been playing well enough offensively together. Saad has 18 shots in his last 9 games without Ryan O'Reilly in the lineup, so he's still staying involved offensively. I do like the St. Louis top line here. I don't mind parts of the Arizona second line. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, this feels like it's a more important. Like, there's not much ownership on this game, and it is a 6.5 total with a very good power play spot for the Blues. So yeah, I do really like the Blues here. Let's talk about those little gremlins that play behind the blue line here. A couple big names are back. Who you liking?
Dante Fabro for Nashville. Now that Alex Carrier is out, Fabro's probably going to be the number 4. That's for you, House. 2,600. I imagine he plays like 19, 20 minutes. Other guys under 3K, Simon Benoit from Anaheim playing 19, 20 minutes. I imagine he's going to have to block a lot of shots against Colorado tonight. Connor Clifton from Boston. A little bit more expensive. Jake McCabe from Chicago, another block bonus candidate. Ryan McDonough, if you can pay up from Fabro on Nashville, don't mind him. And Jonas Brodin from Minnesota. Reasonable price, good projection. In the mid-price range, Jake Wallman, always playing, particularly in this matchup against Montreal. Jared Spurgeon, he's been getting more ice time of late. He's been over 23 minutes a game over his last 5 games, I believe. Torrey Krug, like you said, tremendous power play spot for St. Louis. Don't mind him in the mid-price range. Wrote up Roman Josi. Because Carrier is out, I expect Josi to get a little bit more ice time. He's been up around 25 minutes in his last few games. He had been playing less a little bit earlier, so more ice time would be nice. And Josh Morrissey for an expensive blue liner. Winnipeg at home as well.
Yeah, obviously Cal McCarr, if you can fit him, is good as well. Who you like in a net? A lot of cheap options.
Yeah, I think there's 3 guys that I'm heavily considering. Andre Vasilevsky against Boston, UC Saros at home to New Jersey, and Darcy Kemper as well for Washington. He's at home to Pittsburgh. They're all in that mid-7s-ish price range from DraftKings, all projecting reasonably well. So one of those 3 guys, if I'm paying all the way down, you can play Eric Comrie from Buffalo. I think that's fine at 6,500, obviously, but don't mind taking a chance on John Gibson in net against Colorado. They've had some shooting percentage problems at times this season.
Yeah, I wish Vejmelka was a little bit cheaper. 7,200 is meh because you can just take the 200 and go play Saros. If you want to spend up like Connor Hellebuck, it's really about it. Like I like if you really want to like take another stab on a cheaper guy and you can't even get to like Vejmelka and Jake Allen, I think is okay. But yeah, like Eric Comrie price, I don't really want to play him. But if you have a lineup that you love and you can only afford Comrie, I guess you could put him in just because, goalies are weird creatures and anything can happen. So yeah. Who are you looking for your hat trick pick?
Jordan Kyrou.
Jordan Kyrou.
I don't understand the low ownership from St. Louis, and I imagine I'm going to be playing them.
Yeah, I mean there is that thing that the Blues are trash, but I do really like the Blues tonight. The ownership is a bit surprising. I think it does come up. I got to keep my spiciness alive. I picked Capo Caco yesterday in the Discord. I'm going with Andrew Mangiapane.
Oh, I like it. Let's hope Calgary can bust through here tonight.
For my big head and Slim Cliffy, I say good luck to you. Make sure to click the links in the description below to get those offers. Get into the Discord. Say what's up. I'm from YouTube. And good luck, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow, Cliffy weather permitting. He has a winter storm. Today is a bit windy for me, so if my internet was choppy, I apologize.
Good luck, everybody.